Yeah, no, that's a good point. Maybe you do feature analysis with relatively unfamiliar things, you do template matching if it's something you know really well. Yeah, all of those things are possible. And then maybe there's some other process involved here that nobody's ever even thought of. You just never know that either. Okay, well let's look at template matching first. The idea, to get away from D and start on H here, it has maybe more obvious features. Maybe we, for template matching theory, the idea is that maybe we have stored in our memories an example of every H we've ever seen, and see if that matches one of them. If it does, we have some kind of high-speed scanning process, which is not unthinkable, and we zip through all of those possibilities, and we find one that matches that. Perfect match. Okay, that's an H. Last time I saw that, somebody called it an H. One problem with that idea, and that not an impossible problem, but one kind of a problem, is that that's really a lot of pattern. We have seen a lot of variations over the course of our lives on the letter H. Here is just a set I put down until I ran out of screen. All of those we recognize as the letter H. I'm not sure I've ever seen anything like that when I first found it, but I knew it was an H right away. This has all kinds of loops in it and all kinds of extraneous things on it. I still know it's an H. And this would be if I do a template matching process to recognize H's, this is a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of all of the H's that I've ever seen in all the time I've been reading. That doesn't make the theory impossible, but it's a problem for it. It would have to have some mechanism for how you could scan through that much information that fast. But maybe you could. One mechanism that has been proposed for making template matching more feasible is what you said about context. Why would context help out the process of template matching? Maybe you don't have to test all of the templates. Maybe in this particular context, we could just look at some subset of our templates and just go through them and not have to go through the whole process. Maybe context allows us to cut down on the number of possibilities so we don't have all those 10 million patterns we've got to scan. For example, think fast. That wasn't a comment on take notes. When you see this next slide, I want you to say as fast as you can what the word is. Imagine I'm measuring. So,
It almost looks like
after you think about it, you can think of some other possibilities. And what comes to mind right away is the. How about that word?
cat.
No problem. However, what those two words are, if you look at them together, are that. That and that are exactly the same symbol.
Yeah.
In this example, where it's preceded by T and followed by E, TAE is not a legitimate word. It's not a legal English word. THE is. So you look at, maybe somehow you only have to look through the templates that would be a letter that makes this a real word. Same thing over here. There is no such word as CHT, so you don't even look at the H templates. Now, if it begins with C and ends with T, that's got to be a vowel. Is it an A? Is it an E? Is it an O? Is it a U? Is it an I? You search through those 5 templates, it's got to be an A. What I'm saying is, here, you just search through the possibilities for a word that begins with T and E. This context limits the possibilities, so you don't have to look through every shape you've ever seen. Here, you've got the same symbol, but with a different context, and therefore a different set of possibilities. C and T, it's got to be a vowel, so you just look through the vowel templates, and you don't even look at H templates. Context cuts down on the possibilities, so you don't have to look through every. It cuts down on what shape that could possibly
So
be.
what if you fill in the gap and see it immediately as an A instead of an H?
You will. The context selection process is pretty amazing by itself. You know, what do you recognize this letter and then this letter and sit there and think, oh, let's see, if there's 2 consonants, the word has to have a vowel in it, so let me check the vowels. And so I'll just check E, I, O, and U. And so by that fairly extended thought process, I decide to only check those templates and recognize that as being cat. And that's a pretty complicated process to take place that fast and be totally unconscious. But if you make any slight change to it, it totally changes the process. And you come up with a completely different solution. If you bend the bars in a little more so they come closer to touching, you immediately see it as an A. If you bend them apart, even though that's supposed to be a vowel, if it's too obviously a C, well, it must be an abbreviation for CHT or something like that. So, is that what you meant? Yeah, any little change in it changes the search process, which means whatever in there is doing the searching is really smart. You know, it's taking into account all of these different possibilities and deciding what to look at. Here's another one. What's that?
12, 13, 14, 15. A, B, C, D.
Exactly the same symbol, which to me this one is much stronger than the H one is. And this one, I never would ever in a jillion years occur to me that was a 13. I mean that was a B. 12, 13, 14, 15. It was very clearly 13. This, even though I know it's the same symbol because I cut it out and moved it down here, it's like it looks different in this different context. The effective context is so powerful, it in some way kind of even changes the way it looks. So, anyway, context, whether template matching is right or not, we'll see context. Context is one of the most powerful processes in cognition. What we see is about half determined by what our eyes deliver to our brain, and the other half is determined by what our brain makes us expect. Expectation is just as important in what you see as what your eyes tell you you're seeing. We'll see that over and over again at every level of cognition through the whole course. And with regard to template matching, what that means is that context, at least with regard to the question of number of templates, context kind of saves template matching in that regard because it cuts down on the possibilities and gets it within the realm of reason. And I don't mean that, it's not enough to say context and expectations have a big effect. It's not enough to say context and expectations are important. They are just as important as what you're looking at. What you expect to see is just as important as what you're actually seeing with your eyes. Can't overstate that. Here is some vocabulary on that. This isn't a new idea. It's just so you know what these expressions mean. Information, the part of perception, the part of decision making, the part of the process that is based on what's actually there, that is based on what you're actually seeing, is called bottom-up processing, sometimes called data-driven processing. You end up seeing something based on two sources of information. One source of information is what's really there. That's bottom-up processing or data-driven processing. Those terms are interchangeable. They mean the same thing. It's called bottom-up because the information from the eyes is kind of the bottom of the processing chain that is coming up to the brain. So bottom-up processing is what you're seeing. Top-down processing is what you expect, based on the context, based on what just happened, based on what you know. Also known as conceptually driven processing. One of the main takeaways from this course is that what you see is just as determined by what you expect as it is by what you're actually seeing. And that happens with everything from literal vision to the formation of opinions.
Is it like, for example, like on Sunday, my sister-in-law, my brother came over, and I had seen my keys next to the counter, and I saw her grab and put them in her purse, and I said, "You sure those are your keys?" She's like, "Yeah, I recognize them because of the Vera Bradley keychain. So comes Monday morning, I can't find my keys, so I know where they're at." And she can't believe it. She actually started. She had seen the keychain.
We all probably do that 2-3 times a day. It's just so powerful. Usually it's right. Usually they help each other. Usually the top down clarifies the bottom up. But when they're incongruent, when they don't match, it's just a toss up which one wins. One is as powerful as the other. However, while the power of context the power of conceptually driven processing helps template matching out a lot, because it means that if you're using that kind of process, it would cut down on the number of possibilities. There's another possibility, there's another problem with template matching that that rules it out as a general theory of reading, and that is that especially with letters, get ahead of myself here. Especially with reading, catch up here. Already said all of this. Well, what is that? Everybody sees it as a number. However, if you think about what our templates for A and R would actually look like, they look like something like that. And if we matched that pattern to R and to A,